Good afternoon, guys. So it's an honor for me to be here with you, and thanks to you and in particular to Andrea for the introduction. I am a university professor, so don't worry, I am not so important as Andrea said, but in this moment I am also the Special Envoy for climate change of the Italian government, and it is really important for me to stay here. I can start if you want, Andrea.
With pleasure, and please feel free to share a bit of your story, and then we will have, of course,
Okay.
questions for you at the end, Francesco.
Okay, so I want to start introducing myself. As I told you, I am a university professor. I am a full professor in Ancona in thermodynamics and heat transfer. And I am a specialist in the energy fields, in particular in the new technologies, renewable energies, new kind of nuclear energies, but also the traditional one based on fossil fuel. I started my career in 2002 after my master's degree. I have a PhD in environmental and of complex industrial plants. And normally I taught to younger people and I made my research in thermodynamics and heat transfer. 1 year I lived in the US. I taught at the Catholic University of America. And starting from 2023 in August, I received the appointment as Special Envoy for Climate Change of the Italian government. After that, I participated into two COPs. The first one in Dubai, COP 28, and the last one in Baku, Azerbaijan, COP 29. I think that you know what is COP. COP is a meeting made up by more than 190 countries that decided to work together against climate change. I try to simplify this, it's more complex, and during COP you have all the negotiations about the climate change. After the Kyoto Agreement, we had the Paris Agreement that now is ongoing. And in this here, we had very big news, as I think you know very well. In Europe, we have the European Green Deal, but and the target is to have a neutral continent by 2050. Why I told you that we are in a new era right now? Because as you know, the US decided to quit from the Paris Agreement. In this moment, they are already inside because it is necessary 1 year to quit from the Paris Agreement, but the idea is that at the beginning of 2026, the US will be out of the Paris Agreement. And as you know, this is extremely particular moment because for the climate diplomacy. I am not an ambassador, as you know, or a diplomatic man, and I am not a politician. I am a scientist or close to a science. But for me, after 1 years and a half, is easy to understand that we are in a very, very particular equilibrium and situation around the world. Because we are in the middle of a critical moment for climate change. But it's not only a problem of climate change, but it's a problem of national security risk and it is necessary to start to think that climate change affects all the aspect of our life. I want to explain this very carefully. Climate change is not a problem of our planet or a problem of nature. The problem is for the mankind. What we are destroying is the equilibrium between the human life and the habitat, the nature, our planet, our house. And if we destroy this equilibrium, the real issue is not for the nature that is able to find another equilibrium. The problem is this new equilibrium useful for the mankind, for the amount of people that we have on Earth right now, more than 8 billion? This is the real question. So we are not able to save the planet, but we need to find solution to preserve the connection that we created between mankind and the planet and the natural ambient. I want to show you only one sketch. What is here? Here you can see the climate risk index. Don't worry about the number here, but focus the attention on the color. When you see dark color, the climate risk is higher. And this is the climate risk in the ranking between 1993 and 2022. And we have this situation. It's not important to focus on the number, but as I told you, on the color distribution. For example, in this area, in the North Africa, we have a low climate risk. Instead, we have a higher climate risk in India, in China, and also in Italy, in Greece, and in Spain. And we have a moderate, not lower, but a moderate climate risk index in the US and a lower one in the South of America. This is what we had in the past. What in the new analysis, we have this situation. This is the risk index evaluated in 2022. As you can see, we have an increase of the risk in which part? First of all, in the North America, in all part of North America, so the difference of the color between here, and also in the United States, here and here. Also in the north part, in the north and in the central part of the Africa region. This is what we had in 2022 in comparison with the past. And we have a lower risk in China, in India. Instead, we increase the risk in Europe, because if you say here, we have some black area, but this black area remain enlarged to Portugal, but also we increase the level of France, for example. So, and all this area, the south part of America, increase his risk. Why it is important? Because we have to remember that in this area, this one and this one, we have a huge amount of people. So, in other words, we are in the middle of an important climate crisis that involves a huge amount of people. And to be very careful about this, it is important to remember that this risk is connected, for example, with the floods on one side. On the other side, we have, for example, drought. So we need, for example, more water for this area. And if we don't have water, for example, we don't have land to produce food. The real issue is not only the climate change, but moreover, the consequences connected with the climate change. We evaluated four main consequences of climate change: water scarcity, food insecurity, land degradation. This is the three main pillars connected with climate change. But I told you that we have four. Which is the last one? The last one is a cross-cutting topic that is called migration. If I don't have food, water, and land to produce food, I am obliged to migrate to another part. If I am obliged to migrate, this creates conflicts around the world. I was in NATO 2 weeks ago in Brussels to evaluate the connection between conflicts around the world and climate change. Normally, if I asked you which are the main conflicts right now, you probably mention me the Ukraine, the war between Russia and Ukraine. You can mention me the Middle East, and some of you probably the conflict around the Red Sea. And I agree with you. This is a very important and very dangerous conflict. But we had a bigger number of conflicts with a bigger number of deaths in the Central Africa and in Asia and in the south part of America, because we have conflict for the resources that we don't have because we have climate change. We don't have water, and we have, for this reason, conflicts in Africa, a huge amount of conflict with a huge amount of death. This is the situation that we have right now. And why it is important? Because this is a landscape, an idea, why it is important to start with policy and try to find some common policy. Because one of the characteristics of climate change is that climate change has no borders. Unfortunately, we can't fight against climate change alone. Even if Europe keep a very ambitious program, but Europe remains alone, is not possible to solve the issue of the climate change. For this reason, policy, and in particular the diplomacy that can create a good field for international policy, is really essential. Without a big diplomacy inside the climate change, without the diplomacy, the green diplomacy, climate diplomacy, as you want, call as you want, but if it is not possible to open the dialogues and among the parties, fact, conference of parties, COP is conference of parties, if it is not possible to keep these dialogues, it is extremely difficult to have and to obtain important policies against climate change. For this reason, I started my discussions with you saying that we are in a peculiar moment, because what is my worries is not that the US quits from climate diplomacy, climate change policy, Paris Agreement. Obviously, it is an issue. But the real issue is that this can create some consequences also in other countries. From my side, the real Baku positive result is not connected only with money. I know that 300 billions is not enough for climate change, but the positive result is that everyone, all the countries, remain at the same table to discuss. The problem is to keep the multilateralism approach in the field of climate change. Probably this is one of the main topic where it is necessary to approach and to use the multilateralism approach to try to solve the problem. We don't have any other solution. This is the situation that we have right now. Connected with this, obviously, we can, and it is necessary to propose some specific policy. For example, in Italy, we have several policies for climate change, like to improve the use of renewable energy. It's important to increase the storage of energy, because you know that one of the characteristics of the renewable energies is that it's not possible to predict the amount of energy that we are able to produce in one day. And for this reason, it is necessary to perform the renewable energy with storage of energy. On the other side, it's important to use all the technologies that we have. For example, sometimes you can listen about the neutral technology approach against the climate change. What is the meaning of this? In very easy words, the meaning is this: we need to use all the technology that we have if we want to fight against climate change, in particular when we have to speak about energy production. And I want to give you another example. Think about the use of the artificial intelligence, database, and all the new smart technology. To have these technologies, we need a huge amount of electricity. And electricity is probably the main and the very important kind of energy. Energy is a word that inside you can find a different kind of energy. We have heat, we have electricity, we have work, different kind of energy. The goldest one is the electricity. And if I want to produce electricity, I need to use several sources, like renewable energies or other kind of production, like nuclear energy. So if I want to keep the possibility to use artificial intelligence database, we need to use all the production of the energy sources that I have. So renewable energy on one side and nuclear energy on the other side. In this moment, you are in Paris, and France use a huge amount of nuclear energy. Why this? Because it's essential, it is necessary to keep and to cover all the requests of energy that it is that is necessary in a country like France, of Italy, of the US. I want to give you only one number. At the end of 2030, scientists predict that in the US, the request of electricity only for artificial intelligence will become 4 times in comparison of the electricity that we need right now in the US for the artificial intelligence. This is the situation that we have. But in this situation, my experience is that only if we can work together, it is possible to achieve common and important results. In this moment, I believe that someone can start to think, okay, so it is better to change our speech. We can it is important because if you read the newspaper, it's clear that there is a part of the world, in particular in the US, that is interested in some other situation. One of the slogan is drill, baby, drill. What is drill, baby, drill? Drill is use fossil fuel without any problem. So some of you can start to think, okay, if we need to work together and one of the main actors will decide to quit for the Paris Agreement, we failed. In my opinion, it is possible to keep this, to keep on the target, focus the attention on one or three specific topics that is important also, for example, for the US. One is the risk that I show you with the slide, because climate change affected the national security of each country. The climate risk analysis was made in Germany, and they put in evidence very clearly that the consequences of climate change can be a problem for the national security of each country. In the German government, there is a task force in the Secret Service that is studying the consequences of climate change. You know why? Because if you go back to in your mind in the picture, you can see that there is a large part of Africa, for example, that is affected by climate change. And this area, in this area, is very easy for terrorists to enter and find new men and women to work for them in change of food. And this creates a threat for the security of our country. I believe that moving from an ideological point of view to a practical one with very practical problems, with very practical issues, it is possible to keep a dialogue also with governments that are a bit skeptical against climate change. The idea is, okay, you don't want to speak about climate change, but we need to be very realistic and to be very concentrated on the consequences of, at least, of climate change, like water scarcity, food insecurity, migration, and so on. These can be useful to move money in the adaptation. What is the difference between adaptation and mitigation? Mitigation, if I want to put money in mitigation, is to reduce the emission of CO2. For example, if I decide to buy a photovoltaic panel, is a form of mitigation. Instead, if I want to increase the research to discover new capabilities and new technologies to understand where it is possible to find waters, or if I want to produce new seeds that are able to grow even if the water is not so big, this is a form of adaptation. So focus the attention on the consequences of climate change is one of the main policy that we can make right now. Focus the attention on adaptation to reduce the consequences of climate change. We are working on this. For this reason, for example, we launched, Italy and other countries decided to launch an initiative in COP29 that is called Climate and Peace. Climate and Peace is a sort of aggregation of different countries that want to work together with policy against food insecurity, wood scarcity, and land degradation. We are working with Germany, UK, Emirates, Azerbaijan, Brazil, that is the next COP30, will host in Brazil to promote policy against this problems, against these issues. In Italy, for example, we have the Mattei Plan. What is the Mattei Plan? The Mattei Plan is a form of policy to put money in Africa to fight against the consequences of climate change. And I believe that it's possible to work in this direction also with skeptical countries, like in this moment, the Republican administration in the US. But it's not only this one. We have other example. We have some issues in Indonesia. We have some problem in Argentina. So we have several governments right now that are a bit skeptical against climate change. We need to focus the attention on the consequences of climate change, instead speaking only about an ideological point of view. And I want to close this my small lesson to give you space for question of what you want, to focus the attention on Europe. After the election of the last year, we had a new government in Europe that remains strongly involved in the climate change. Ursula von der Leyen, that is our president of the European Community, decided to keep all the target of the Green Deal, but with a practical approach. So we want to keep the target, but we want also to preserve our capability to produce, to have industries, to produce goods in Europe and so on. So the idea is this: Europe wants to remain a leader inside the climate diplomacy and climate policy, but it's not possible alone. For this reason, there is a sort of attention to other partners that can be involved in this discussion. One, for sure, is China. Remember this: if one chair remains free, some other people are interested to sit on that chair. What does it mean? If the US will confirm the idea to quit from the Paris Agreement, there will be new space for other economies to enter in the big deal of the green technology. In this moment, there are a huge amount of investment inside the green economy. Think this: one of the biggest states in the US is a Republican state, is Texas, and Texas has a huge amount of the investment in the renewable energy and storage of energy. So remember that money is important in this, and the investment are made by money. So in this, from an economic point of view, it's crucial to understand this new equilibrium among the parties. On one side, we have the European Union that wants to remain engaged in climate change. On the other side, if the situation remains like this, so with the decision to quit from the Paris Agreement, in the next year, 2026, we don't have the US government. So we have a space for someone else. China is possible. India is possible. Both of them are interested to enter inside this. And on the end also, we have a lot of governors of the United States, of different United States, that wrote a letter to Gutierrez, that is the General Secretary of the UN, to say okay, the federal government decide to quit, but we want to maintain our policies against climate change, to focus the attention on renewable energy, of nuclear energy, reduction of CO2, reduction of pollutions, because sometimes you are focusing on CO2, but the problem is not only the CO2 emission. We have methane emissions, we have plastic, we have microplastics, we have a lot of huge pollution element around the world. So the problem is not only the emission, but for sure, emission is one of the main aspects, the main target that we need to reduce. So, Andrea, I would like to stop here to listen if there are some questions from the people there.
First of all, a big applause from more or less
Thank you.
climate realpolitik, right? If we can call it in this way.
Yeah. Yes, in
Really...
my opinion, it is important to get that you have a big picture of really this day. This is the situation of these weeks from January and February, and we are working on COP30, but with this landscape.
And we are very lucky to have it firsthand from one of the people in the room making this politic happen on earth. So maybe what I suggest is that we really take some questions, and while I let you prepare mentally some questions, I just recap a couple of points that I logged in the knowledge impact you in your Greentech journey, right? Number one, you know that where you play is something that is heavily dependent on the ecosystem around you, right? Our Francesco was mentioning, there is a lot of space now to help adaptation get money. In the discussion we had last week, we realized that mitigation, remember when we discussed with Elena, mitigation is now having more and more funds in climate, because let's imagine that house in California that now needs to be built in materials that are not taking fire easily, right? So we discussed last week exactly the opposite. There is a push from the private market to go into mitigation, and we said, no, we need to work in adaptation, because if we don't work in adaptation, we have bigger costs. So the cost is a cost of opportunity cost. Second, the concept for some of us that are Americans in the room and some of us that are like from China, for example, is that who's taking this leadership if it's empty the chair? Shall we go at lower level at federal states, or shall we go to replace completely the deal makers of the next COP deals, the next climate negotiations? Another thing that I loved is to see how Italy has been positioned in the middle. As an Italian myself, I'm actually very proud that we took a non-ideological approach, because very often we need to get things done in climate. And in this sense, working on peace is not to bring it all together. At least in principle, no one say I want war and war only, right? So if peace is an instrument of climate, let them be together and let's create unexpected alliances. When you see the new US coming next to Argentina, even in favor of climate policies. So this is a bit of a recap of all the things that we just mentioned. I did as an excuse to give you time to prepare amazing questions. And now, Francesco, I will take it from the room. Who wants to start? Maybe I take a volunteer here. I take you, come next to in front of the screen for the fast come. Don't be shy and leave the laptop there. And at the beginning, we always warm it up, Francesco. And then
don't worry, no, guys, don't worry. Normally I taught at the university, so I know that it's difficult to have a question.
Thank you. Feel free to say your name as well. Okay. And thank you for volunteering. Very.
Give me a moment.
Even something personal, and sorry for the catch. The beauty is that we have a person that really works on climate diplomacy as a title. So even from his own personal life, to what he sees in the perspective, to where he sees business moving, to where the world is aligning, anything that comes to your mind.
Hello, my name is Joel. I think the question I would like to ask is, you stress the need for EU cooperation. I guess with the rise of protectionism, not just in the US, but maybe in other European countries as well. How does that look like going forward?
So, okay, yes, it's correct. Great question. Because the protectionism, like all the other thing, is connected with diplomacy. I want to answer in this way. In COP29, I had the first meeting with the Special Envoy of Climate Change of China. And we were speaking about climate issue, the policy, the capability of China to enter in with the more support in the climate money and so on. And in the middle of the discussion, the Special Envoy of Climate Change of China said to me, okay, but with the tariffs, and I remain, why tariff? We are speaking about climate change. And immediately I understood that all is connected, obviously. So it's crucial because tariff is one of the topics that can enter in the all dialogues, also with climate change. If you think, in example, about the electric car, so in this moment, China has the capability to produce the cheapest electric cars in the world. If we want, for example, in Europe, to increase of the electric vehicles, it is important to have the possibility to import from China. This, on one side, we increase the economy production of electric car in China with more richness in China, and have electric vehicle cheapest in European Union. So we have a positive effect on the climate emission in Europe only if we are able to reduce the tariff that can enter for the car that enters in Europe. So it's a very easy example to explain that everything is connected, and it will be inside the dialogues on is always everything is inside tariff and climate change. And obviously, we have a big issue if we increase the tariff of some goods from China, or vice versa, from Europe to China, or from Europe to US and US to Europe. In this moment, as I told you, climate change is with no borders, and it is necessary to work together, but in particular from the economic point of view. All the economic aspects are connected, in particular the economic aspect that is a sort of leverage of the climate and climate issue and climate policy and the climate economy also. So is one of the discussion that we had right now on our tables. We are speaking about climate issue, but on the other side also economic issue. Everything is connected.
Thank you very much.
And thanks
Thank you.
for the question. Let me pick up. Thank you. We have an Italian, Francesco, to stay home.
Wow.
With us here. Thank you, Greta.
Hello, buonasera. Thank you so much for your presentation. I had a question on Italy specifically. You said that the climate risk in Italy is one of the highest in Europe. And I wanted to ask, why is there a main reason for it? And do you think the country is doing enough to fight it?
So we are at the first position in Europe, and we have at the fifth position in the world.
Right.
Why? First of all, in Italy, we have everything. We have earthquake, we have volcanoes, and we have also the consequences of climate change. Why? The consequences of climate change are strongly connected with the position of Italy. Consider that we are the north of Africa. And remember that the area where these consequences are higher is in the north part of Africa, and this is in the center of the Mediterranean area. Last week, I made a call with several countries to analyze the consequences of the sea level rise in the Mediterranean area. So the reason is the position. We are in the center of Mediterranean area, and this area is registering the higher level temperature in the world. Is Italy doing enough? This is difficult to answer. We are trying, but remember this: when you speak about mitigation, is sometimes easy to do something. If I want to build a photovoltaic power plant in 1 month, I can build 1 megawatt. When I need to prepare for the adaptation, so for the consequences of climate change, it is necessary to build big infrastructures. And to build infrastructure, it is necessary money, time, and moreover, bureaucracy. I need to put at the same table the central government, the region, the municipalities, people, normal people and association. So it's not so easy. For this reason, we are trying using also the funds of the PNRR, but I believe that is necessary more time to have a good result. So for the next at least 5-6 years, I believe that we need to consider the floods in north part of Italy and water scarcity in the south part.
Thank you.
Thank you, Greta. And Sebastian.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
I've learned that nuclear energy was created by an Italian scientific, so Fermi. Do you think that Italy is investing enough in nuclear energy now? And another question is, do you have concrete example of projects like R&D that Italian team led with over European countries, European teams, for example, French team on a climate related topic? Can be everything, but do you have concrete projects that shows these partnerships between European countries? Yes, so
Okay, so for the first one about nuclear energy, as you know, in Italy, we are trying to reopen the discussion, but the real problem is not which can be the role of nuclear energy. The real question that sometimes I try to put in the mind of my politicians is this: which is the target of Italy? Which is the target of Italy? Is Italy interested to become independent from an energetic point of view and keep on the track of the new technology? So we have to consider that we need a huge amount of electricity, really huge amount of electricity. We want to quit from the fossil fuel. Consequently, we have only 2 solutions. The first one is renewable energies, but you know which is the shape of the Italian territory. We don't have big space for big photovoltaic plants or huge space for wind farms. So if we want to be independent and free from fossil fuel, we don't have at the moment new solution that nuclear energy and in the future nuclear energy fusion. So to be very pragmatic is a problem. I am an engineer. So if you want to be independent and free from fossil fuel, for the moment, I have no other solution. Instead, if you want to keep on track the fossil fuel like natural gas, we can maintain the thermal power plant that we have in Italy to produce electricity, but we need to remember that we don't have natural gas, and for this reason, we are connected with foreigner countries. Someone can say me, okay, but Italy doesn't have uranium to produce electricity. Correct. For this reason, I told you that nuclear energy is only a part of the solution, is not only the solution. If Italy wants to be independent and safe from energetic point of view, Italy needs to use all and different technology, renewable energy, storage, nuclear energy, and natural gas with carbon capture. Only if we have all the technology, we can be safe and independent from the other countries. About some projects, I don't have a specific project. I can mention you only one that I know very well. Is a project in Mauritania and is for land restoration. The title of the project is Half Moon. Half Moon is a technique to restore the land. The idea is to create a natural barrier to the water that remain on the land and have enough time to pass from the arid surface to the lower part. And thanks to this, it is possible to produce grass for animals, and thanks to this, to restore the land. But we are working with our partners to increase the project between Italy, Europe, and World Bank and the Green Climate Fund, and so on, to increase the capabilities of this project.
Francesco, we'll take the last question before we
Yeah.
just thank him for all this time together. And please, feel free to come close to us. You have the honor of closing, so we expect an amazing question. No pressure. So, please.
Hello, my name is Sandy,
Hi.
and I kind of have like a two-sided question. So during the introduction, you talked about solving the climate crisis, that it is about finding the new equilibrium, which is useful for mankind. So I'm guessing this is like finding the cost-effective ratio between adaptation and mitigation. So currently, with the kind of anti-climate in certain governments, do you think that the trajectory is that we're investing way too much in adaptation contra mitigation? And do you think that this ratio is so far off that investments in adaptation cannot really be seen as green investments?
Thanks. So, yes, I believe that in this moment, the international situation that we have in several countries oblige us to think more about the adaptation. I need to be very honest with you. I think that from a scientific point of view, is not late. It is not too late to keep the target of 2 degrees Celsius. It is possible to keep this target, to maintain to keep the temperature lower of this. Focus at least for some country like Europe, for example, to invest in mitigation. If we can increase the effort of the mitigation of the European community, it is possible to, and also with the support of China, it is possible to focus also on the target of the Paris Agreement and to keep the 2 Celsius degree. But to be very pragmatic, I think that for the last 4 years we need to be very involved in the adaptation. Because a lot of several countries, not a lot of countries, but the main countries that is the second the country that emit a huge amount of pollution is the US. And if the US confirm the idea to stop the investment on the mitigation, this is a real big issue. So for this reason, I started a lot to focus the attention on the adaptation, but with some hopes in Europe that can work together with China to keep the investment on track also on the mitigation.
Okay, thank you.
Class,
Thank-
please join me to thank you all. Francesco Corvaro.
Thank you.
For being with us.
Thanks.
Examples given us.
Grazie, Andrea.
Thanks to you, Francesco. Of course, until the next one, and
Okay.
Paris, and thank you for all of us.
Bye, guys. Have a good evening.
Yes.